Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge and Company. I first heard of Kathy Hochul in 2011 when, as a Democrat, she won an astonishing victory in a special election to represent a strongly Republican district in Western New York. Now she's the state highest-ranked elected woman and the most prominent, as well, I think, the most traveled lieutenant governor of New York. I'm pleased to say she's my guest today. Welcome.
Thank you, Ronnie. Very happy to be here.
I followed you on your schedule on, online, and I can't believe how far and how many places you are from every day, practically.
Every day is so fascinating to me, and when I get an invitation or have an opportunity to talk about Governor Cuomo's agenda, even if it's in the far reach of the state, I seize it because I think people really want to see their representatives in government. Far too often they're remote, they're distant,
right.
And I get to be the face of the government for Andrew Cuomo all over. So I really embrace it. So don't feel sorry for me.
Okay, you're enjoying it.
A lot of it's self-induced. I could say no to more things, but I really seize the day, and really relish it.
Good. That's when I say Western New York, it's Buffalo, right?
I'm from Buffalo, but
right.
My congressional district was actually not Buffalo. It was the rural areas of upstate New York, 7 counties. Wyoming, Orleans, Niagara, Livingston. There are a handful of counties in that area. So very rural. But I do live in the city of Buffalo now. Although, if you ask the guy who claims he's still my husband after 30-some years, he doesn't see me a lot. I'm in the city often. I'm in New York City, Long Island, Westchester, very often.
What's the official role of the lieutenant governor?
Constitutionally, it's very simple. I'm the president of the Senate, and I preside over Senate proceedings. However,
do you do that?
I do that periodically, but it is more ceremonial. I'm there to open up the session, close the session, but I really find that they can function just fine without me having to stand there with a gavel in my hand.
If they function.
Well,
I mean, we won't comment
we'll
about
debate that later. But I also
do you have a deciding vote?
No.
Okay.
No, so that changed. So if there's a tie, I do not have a deciding vote. There's some procedural maneuvering I could accomplish, but not a deciding vote. So I look at the days in a week and where I can have the most impact for the people of the state, and it's really out there, visiting the people in the small towns in particular, because upstate New York, almost have been 2 different states for a long time, and I think we've seen dramatic changes. I know it, I feel it in upstate New York, and so I want to go out and talk about that, but also New York City, the population, the energy, the jobs, and so I love coming here as well, so I just try to go everywhere I can.
I was going to ask you, is the difference between upstate and downstate very obvious? Is there a chance we can get interests together?
And I believe we can, and the governor believes we can, and what he would say for many, many decades is that upstate New York was neglected in our state capital simply because of the politics. There's more population, larger population in New York City. They had more representatives, more voices, more elected officials in Albany. So when, for example, they're making decisions on where economic development dollars, resources should be spent, a lot of it came to New York City, and there was a time in the 70s, particularly, New York City needed a lot of help. New York City is doing very well with strategic investments by the governor. We've invested in bringing back jobs in the Bronx, and we just announced $1 billion to help the tough parts of Brooklyn. So it's very much on our radar, particularly with respect to infrastructure. We can talk about that. But upstate New York had special needs, and I'm from Buffalo, and the governor said if I can bring back an area of the state that's really the most depressed, has more people leave, incredible brain drain, businesses left, my own family left, my siblings, my kids. If I can help bring back an area like Buffalo, we can do it everywhere else in the state. And so I really feel like the differences as far as economic prosperity are tightening better, which is good. More jobs are coming upstate. But philosophically and politically, there's still a vast difference. And I know that from being in Congress.
New Yorkers always felt that we sent too much money to Albany.
Well, and I think
there was that.
They certainly do send money to Albany, and a lot of it is returned. If you look at the bridges, the airports, the MTA, the port, the funding that this area does receive from the taxpayer dollars that were sent to Albany, they are coming back. And so when you talk about the boldness of the governor's $100 billion infrastructure initiative, it's really happening downstate here where it's needed. I mean, we need to keep our subways, the Second Avenue subway. What an accomplishment to say, you know what, stop waiting, get it done. And the governor did that.
And it's exciting, People say, oh, have you been on that new subway? It's so great.
Well, wait till you see LaGuardia and JFK, where I fly in and out of almost daily. So these are my people. This is my base. I feel like I know all the people who work at the airports. But those are going to be transformative, and people will be very proud. And also Penn Station, too. Oh, my gosh. We've got to bring that back.
So you chair these local economic development councils, right? And what is that? What are they like?
There's 10 regional economic development councils set up geographically. So for the first time ever, you actually have areas, counties, elected officials, business people in a region as opposed to a county working on the same team. And they put forward a strategic plan and a funding plan on what they'd like to see their priorities be. So for example, in Western New York, there are 7 counties that truly used to compete with each other. And I say this as a former county official, that what happened in Erie County, if some jobs or something good happened there, people in Niagara County are like, why did they get it? So there was a lot of territorialism, if that's such a word. But now they work together, and that's really changed the mindset of people upstate, that you have more collaboration in a region. So the Finger Lakes, for example, how we promote the wineries and the tourism in there, or in the North Country, the jobs that we have up there related to transportation equipment manufacture. A lot of our subways and buses right here in the city are manufactured up on the Canadian border. So that's a part of their industry. Mid-Hudson has different strengths. Long Island has different strengths. So we've set up these regions not run by the politicians, but run by people in academia. There's always a co-chair who's the president of a major college and a co-chair who's from the business community. They preside over a council of people from business, labor, not-for-profits, electeds, and it's working. And that is how we've changed. Instead of having elected officials saying, I've got more clout on this community, on this committee, I'm going to bring more money to my district, whether or not that's really where the needs are. So that's been the dramatic change in the delivery of economic development
They
dollars.
have an impact on the budget then.
Absolutely. And so the governor was successful in securing an additional $750 million. He does this every year and has done for the last 6 years, set aside for these councils. And that money is available for these areas to compete for. Again, it's not just whoever has the loudest voice gets the money. It is a competition. The best succeed. So it forces you to really work together, say, how are we going to beat out those other areas? And a little competition is healthy. And in addition, there's 3 areas that received an additional $500,000. What we also do, what's exciting, we did this for New York City as well. There's something called the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. $10 million go to 10 different cities or regions. It went to Jamaica last year in Queens. They are so excited about how they can use $10 million to transform their streetscape, help bring back jobs, training, infrastructure improvements. And I've done this, I was just in Oswego, I was in Elmira, and for these communities, that sum of money will absolutely put them on a whole new path toward a different future. And there's a lot of energy and excitement around those.
So it's the council that gets the money
The council
and administers it?
Yes.
So do they elect within their group?
Well,
or do they have an organization, they have a director and all that kind of stuff?
There is, Empire State Development is the overreaching entity. So it's their staff, and they evaluate, and there's a strategic team that goes around and evaluates the programs with other members of the governor's cabinet to have sort of a 10,000-foot view, someone from the outside saying, where we think this, how to help them evaluate them. But it is really the people in that community who are represented on this council who determine where their assets are, what the pillars of industry that they want to promote, like life sciences and biosciences here out on Long Island. The city of New York, it's all about life sciences, huge investments in the New York Genome Center. And that's coming out of a decision from the Regional Economic Development Council here that that's an area where they want to put a lot of their assistance. Technology training, job training, skills for people. It all comes and is funneled through this one council. So it kind of simplifies state government for people looking for funding. They now come to this one council. The applications are due in May, decisions in the fall, and the funding around. So it's working really well.
So you really get to know all those people who are really doing things locally. I mean, you're seeing the results.
I get to see them, but also I get to go out and tour the projects once they're underway. I go to the groundbreakings. I tour the construction sites. I get to visit the community after it's already built, talk to the new employees at the businesses that are coming. And we've had over about $5 billion invested, and that's created over 4,000 new jobs. So jobs that wouldn't have been there if we weren't really strategic. And that's what's so different under Governor Cuomo, is how we're approaching economic development.
Does it affect the members of the legislature at all?
Well,
I mean, are they beginning to find common cause more than they did?
I think they are, Ronnie, because at first it's like, wait, this is whole different. We're used to this, having our pork barrel projects. They don't want to call it that, but it's who's got the most clout was able to bring more to their districts. We saw that with You know, up in Albany, the nanotechnology came out of having a very influential, you know, majority leader of the Senate from that area, Joe Bruno. So that area got a lot of attention, but the other areas of the state did not. So I think they're starting to see the success. They hear from their local elected officials, the mayors, the county executives, who are thrilled about this process because it's money that they never had access to. And the downtowns like Utica and places I tour often are coming back. And so the elected officials are there for all the ribbon cuttings, their names are in the press releases. You know, they're sharing the credit because really they're the ones who funded the whole idea of this project as well. The governor puts it forward, but they could strip it from the budget, and they didn't. So there's shared success.
I've always wondered, the mayor of Buffalo, he's considered a more powerful person than an assemblyman from Buffalo, assembly person?
He has a lot of clout. Yes, he does. And I think there's a different format. You know, if you look at the history of control of the mayoral control in New York City versus other mayors, I mean, a lot of it came because of the financial crisis in the 70s, and there was a thought that more oversight was needed. And that's not the case in some of the other cities like Buffalo. So the mayor does have a lot of control. He works closely in partnership with the assembly, but he's the final arbiter on a lot of decisions. Works closely with our governor. The governor has relationships with all the upstate mayors, particularly to, you know, find out what their needs are. He's constantly flying. I think he's in Rochester today, flying in and out of these areas as well, and keeping our ears to the ground on what the needs are. So we're not sitting in a bubble in Albany thinking like, oh, this is our vision for the state. Let's just impose it.
Yeah.
That's not how this governor operates. It's all about percolating from the ground up.
I could give you a zinger, but I don't want to because it's not yours. I'm certainly not working with the mayor of the city of New York. The relationship is jarring, and I don't understand why it's so peculiar, right?
Well, it's fascinating for people to
knows.
talk about it, but you know, I think at the end of the day, they both believe, you know, in
of course
the
they
future
do,
here,
but and you know, they used to be friends. I mean, de Blasio worked basically for him. It's too complicated. I
don't think we have enough time today.
So also now, so you have different responsibilities or assignments. I mean, they're basically, right.
Yep.
So now let's come to the commission on the suffrage movement. Or what is it called?
Women's Suffrage Centennial Commission. It's to celebrate the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage in the state of New York. And I have to tell you, Ronnie, this has generated more excitement than I even anticipated. I mean, I love history, but I didn't know whether or not people would, you know, okay, another women's commission, we're talking about the past, you know, what's the relevance? Yeah. But when you talk about the stories of the suffragettes, and you talk about how they were taking to the streets and being arrested for simply voting, like Susan B. Anthony was, and how they were ostracized, and they never gave up. Their families sometimes criticized them. The husbands wanted them back home, and the kids were you know, not seeing their mothers as much, but they never gave up. And I think when you fast forward to 2017, it's really timely. And so when I speak about what we're doing on the commission, I say, let's honor the past. Let's look to their lessons, but let's assess where we are today. And basically, we should be thinking about our legacy. And 100 years from now, in 2117, and people look back and say, well, what did they do? What did the women and the enlightened men do back in 2017 to move progress for women forward and help our daughters have a better future? We're going to be evaluated. So I challenge people all over the state. You know, when I'm speaking on a college campus, just at SUNY New Paltz on Saturday, giving this message to college students. And when I'm speaking to women from the League of Women Voters or organizations all over the state, wherever I gather, I say, I'm putting this on your shoulders because I can't do this alone. You need to think about what we've accomplished to help women because we are still not represented in the numbers we should be in the halls of power, whether it's power in the boardrooms or whether it's elected officials in Washington, our state capitals, city. The numbers are still staggering to me. How much farther we have to go.
Do you know how many women are in the assembly?
Not hard numbers, but we moved up to 27%.
That's so terrible.
And that's up from 25, so we were all high-fiving and excited about that, I say.
And the Senate is even worse, isn't it?
Senate's bad as well. And the same thing in Washington, when I was a member of Congress, it was 20%. So 9 times out of 10, when I got in an elevator to cast a vote, I was surrounded by, like, tall Tea Party guys, you know, there's no women around.
And the city council here in New York is also, we're losing members.
That really shocked me as well, because New York City is really viewed as the progressive beacon for other parts of the state and the country. And I'm always appearing with the council women of City of New York and talking about them. And it should not be as lonely for them as it is. We should have.
So what are we going to do?
I think that a lot is happening in Washington. I won't get political, I guess, but I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of inspiration right now. A lot of women who took for granted the right to choose, for example, and pay equity, and to have a president who said, when asked, what would you do if your daughter was sexually harassed on the job? And he said, I think she would change jobs then. I thought, okay, we really have to change the culture, and women have to do this, and women have to lead. So I'd like to see more women step up and run for office. I understand why they don't. I've given this a lot of thought, and I'm trying to help them break down their reluctance to be part of that process. I think a lot of women, first of all, put their families first. They don't want to put them through the sometimes searing criticism that's out there, whether when I was first running, the little letters to the editor that my husband used to cut out of the newspaper so I wouldn't see them and feel bad. But he found later he really couldn't protect me from blogs and social media. So your family feels the pain when you're out there. But also a lot of women, and this makes me crazy, but a lot of them feel like they have to be the best person before they'll even consider it. It's like, why? Why? You have something to offer. And I tell this story. When I was, and I had served as counsel to Senator Moynihan. I'd helped start businesses. I've been in business a long time, had children, had a mortgage, and I was 35 years old, moved back to Buffalo, and I had an opportunity to run for town council. I'd gone to meetings. I was an activist. I was always protesting, getting petitions, stopping something, and I didn't want to run because I didn't think I was qualified to run for the lowest rung of government until a 22-year-old young man, just out of college, living at home with his parents, never had a job, never had a mortgage, decides he's going to run too. So I thought, okay, how long am I going to have this complex that's my own? That's my own doing. And I said, you know what, I think I can run. There were 2 seats, both of us ran, we both won, and that young man who's the same age as my baby brother is now one of my dearest friends. I mean, he was not wrong. I was the one that was wrong.
Absolutely.
So I want women to stop holding yourselves back, because we need your voices so desperately.
And the experience. I mean, I was fortunate enough to work at Ms. Magazine in the early times, and I would go around the country talking to people and say, if you run a household, if you're the mother and you're the responsibility for kids, and if you're married and you're doing the marketing, you're doing all these things, the planning and everything, that's what it's all about. It's the same planning. I mean, it just makes me, you're so right about it, that we think we have to know. When I first worked for John Lindsay, I was shocked. I always thought that when you went in front of, Face the Nation or one of those programs, that you knew all that information. I didn't realize all the prepping and the details and the help you get. So I think that's very important, and I think it's important in everything. I mean, foundations have their own vocabulary, so they make it more mysterious. I mean, it's a protection, in a way, of the people who are in there.
And your analogy with what women do in a household, we're the best multitaskers on the planet. And so we're juggling, and I'll never forget when I was, just had a baby, and I was trying to have some clients, and I had a baby on a hip, and my husband's boss is coming to dinner, and I'm trying to stir up something and on the phone and pretending. So I was like, okay, I think we can do anything. And so I just told this story over the weekend that, that we only have, well, let me phrase it this way. Back 30 years ago, 13% of the chief administrative officers in government were women. Those are your mayors, your supervisors, your county executives, your borough presidents. Those are the ones who really run things, like running a household. And what is the number today? 13%. We've not moved the needle one bit. And that's after seeing Geraldine Ferraro run for office, and even Hillary Clinton, who was our senator, and Kirsten Gillibrand. And we have more role models. And there's people out there that you can look to and say, you know what, I can do that. Now, upstate New York, we've got women mayors in Albany and in Saratoga and Rochester and Syracuse. I like that. So I'm seeing more of that upstate. But other areas I go to around the states, like, where are the women? And so I want them to run, but also it's not just running. Not everybody has to be the candidate. You can help other people run. You can watch their kids when they're at the debate. You can help them with their social media. You can make some fundraising calls. You can stuff envelopes. You can just be there to knock on doors.
Go to a meeting and just support them. You know.
Yes. Write some letters. Go on the blogs and say I love this person, or go on social media. There's so many ways that women can help elevate other women, and because they will be a better representative of their needs 9 times out of 10.
Have you found around the state I mean, we used to have the commissions on the status of women and all those different things. That, and in the state government, I headed up the women's division, which was a cabinet level position. Do you find any of these localities having their own women's task forces or groups?
A lot of them do, yes.
Yeah.
And I speak to them, I bring them together, and they're not just focused on women in politics, they're also about board representation, like gathering the names and resumes of women that would want to serve on a board, and often women are on the unpaid boards, and the guys are always on the paid corporate
and they
boards.
all make a lot of money.
And I think that's another area where, you know, you kind of vote with your, you know, your pocketbook, where you can say, I'm not supporting companies that don't have more women represented in the boardrooms and in the corporate structure. And so, I do think that those conversations are going on, but we just haven't gotten...
It's a different age. I was just thinking the Women's Political Caucus used to be much more important. Some of the now chapters were more important, but we don't... They've sort of melted into the general population. I don't know.
But I think there's a lot more pop-ups, if you will. There's a lot of people, and I've met a lot of Democratic leaders across the state. I was at the Democratic Rural Caucus, where you have, you know, the leaders from the hardest. I mean, to be a Democrat in so many of these counties, you're just you're sentencing away your kid's chance to get a job at the parks, your brother's chance to get a job at the Buildings and Grounds Department. So you're the true believers. And they are seeing a lot more people pop up. They're not necessarily organized in one format, but people want to be engaged. And even just nationally, I saw the number that there's over 11,000 people who've reached out to Emily's List and organizations where they train women to run for national office, you know, for federal office. And that's encouraging. But how we keep that energy alive. I don't want this to be where we start feeling that there's a normalization, that it's okay, that we're, you know, there was a lot of shock value that took people to the streets and a lot of conversation. But if we don't continue to capitalize on that energy, then shame on us. And that's what I'm troubled by. It's why I'm never home, because I feel like we have to keep talking about this.
Do you think women have a different perspective about public policy?
Sure they do.
It's different, right?
It's personal. It's
Absolutely.
personal. It's
it's so important.
And what I do reject is calling anything related to women's issues.
Oh, totally.
Because that marginalizes it. And no man should want his daughter to make less than her brother, or his wife to bring home less, or his sister to be, you know, sexually harassed in the workplace, or, you know, your friend being sexually assaulted on a college campus. And so we want men to do things like take family leave themselves. I mean, why wouldn't they say, okay, I'll take advantage of the fact that Governor Cuomo made sure we have the most generous paid leave program in America, and go 50-50. You know, you take some time, I'll take some time. So don't put all these responsibilities on the woman to also take care of the aging parents and take care of the kids, and just share it more. But I do believe that when women get into the legislatures, particularly, we saw just an article about what's going on in Nevada. Women comprise almost 40% of the elected officials in the legislature in Nevada. They just enacted the ERA. They have very generous paid leave. They do this. Now, lucky for us, we have a governor who really does embrace these issues like a woman would. I mean, I really think it's a strong influence of Matilda. He's got sisters, he's got his daughters, and so he is influenced in a way to make sure that we have these rights, and I admire that. And so going around the state and talking about this, you can have it doesn't have if it's a man or a woman in the position, as long as they're fighting for those rights that affect women, particularly women's pocketbook, minimum wage. The governor fought hard to increase the minimum wage because 70% of minimum wage earners are women, and they're likely to be single women trying to raise a family. And this past year we doubled the child care tax credit. That helps working families. So it's all about supporting women, supporting the middle class families that feel like they've been left out of the political conversation. And that's what the governor's been doing, and I've been able to talk about it all over the state.
How did you get into, I mean, were you born a politician?
No. In fact, I didn't even run for student council in high school. I was working.
Or a political being, really. That's basically the awareness. It's a family, isn't it?
It's from my parents. My dad worked at the Bethlehem steel plant, and my mom was home taking care of kids, and so. But we were just my parents started married life in a trailer. We had nothing, and we used to get our clothes at used clothing stores, but my mother still made sure that we still took care of people in the city. And we had 6 kids, and we were always bringing kids out who were underprivileged or needed to go to the fair. We took them out, was playing, riding bikes with us. So my entire life was about other people, and that's how I was raised. My parents were really, really involved in social movements, the Vietnam War, civil rights back in the 60s, and I was very much attuned to what was going on at my dinner table and talking about. We all cried when Martin Luther King was assassinated, and I was just a little kid, but it was profound. And when we lost Bobby, and so it's just, I think that's just kind of cemented who I was, and I didn't know what to do with that other than government and politics. And so just as a high school student, I worked on campaigns with Tim Russert, helping Senator Moynihan get elected. So I don't think it was part of my, like, no one would have looked at my family situation and said she's going to run for office.
Right.
I just gravitated to it as a way to make people's lives better. It's how I can use my skills. So
I think I had sort of the same thing, always active. My parents are active in the community, and you just have that feeling. You want to make people's lives better. You want to change the world, right?
It's that simple.
You have to have that drive.
And it doesn't stop. I mean, you still have that drive. It doesn't go, it's part of your DNA. And I credit my parents, my mom and dad instilled in me that strong sense of social responsibility. And
they must be pretty proud.
Well, they have been. They have been. Yeah, I think they are proud.
As well as the children, your children.
They are. They put up with a lot, being the children of a politician. And I always thought there should be a support group for the children of politicians to kind of share war stories. Can you believe our mothers are making us have to deal with this? Why can't we have a normal mother? Yeah. But I think they're better citizens as well. I mean, I may not have been as home for every event I wanted to be home for. I had a very supportive husband who just said, go do it. You're changing the world. I'm with you. So that helped me a lot, too. Not everybody has that. Yeah. And I think my kids are more in tune with social issues. Like I was telling you, my daughter just marched with the scientists in Washington, and she's always out there with her signs.
Well, I hope
changing the world.
I hope you're successful in instilling that interest around the state. And we've come to the end of this program.
Oh, I've enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much. It's been so great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ronnie.
We at CUNY TV always like to hear from our viewers. So if you have any subjects you'd like to explore or people you'd like to hear, please let us know. Write to us at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or go to our website, cuny.tv, and click on Contact Us. We look forward to hearing from you.